Hello everyone. Welcome to our session on critical thinking in the age of AI, the academic edition. It's a buzzword likely to come up in every debate around the use of AI. The most common questions, of course, are with the prolific use of these tools. Are we really becoming over reliant on this technology? How do we preserve our unique human perspective? What's the line between AI doing the work versus simply assisting someone? And honestly, there's no easy black and white answer to this. But today, we attempt to break that down in the context of the academic writing process, and hope you can walk away with some practical strategies and do's and don'ts. So, with that, let's get started with introductions. I'm Nolita Coelho, your host, and I head up the product division at Paperpal. And our main speaker for today is Samuel Leslie. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Nolita.
As a senior product manager at PayPal, Samuel leads the development of AI powered tools that enhance research communication, collaborating with experts in linguistics, data science, and engineering. He focuses on solutions like grammar correction, language quality assessment, image forensics, and document structuring. All of these help researchers publish with confidence, of course, and help journals actually streamline their workflows. As a father of two children approaching their teenage years, I think Sam's also worried about how AI is going to affect the development of their own cognitive skills. So he also dedicates a lot of his time outside of work in exploring ways to preserve the essential human skills, such as reading and writing, in this increasingly AI driven world. So before I hand over to him, there are a few things I'd like to cover, for which you can draw your attention to the presentation on the screen. Here's a quick checklist on how you can engage with today's session. Through the session, feel free to share your own experiences, challenges, and learnings in this space using the chat window to the right of your screen. This is a very collaborative session. I believe there's as much for each of us to learn from each other, as Sam walks us through. This is an evolving topic, so keep the chat buzzing. If you have specific questions that you want to be addressed as part of the Q&A segment later, then make sure you drop it into the questions, the Q&A section of the side panel. During the presentation, you might also find it useful to actually zoom in and watch in full screen, so you can clearly see what's on there, and consider using headphones for the best audio experience. Lastly, of course, don't worry about notes or screenshots, or in case you're having any technical difficulties, you will receive a full recording of the session and the presentation later. So that's it from me. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Nolita. So, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be exploring this topic because, like Nolita mentioned, I've kind of been looking at the way AI shapes, the process of thinking, especially researching and writing. And I thought that this quote is pretty apt to start off with by Carl Sagan, just talking about how science is so much more than just a body of knowledge, and it's actually a way of thinking, right? And in terms of knowledge, information in the age of AI, it's all around us. Like, it's so easy to have access to knowledge and information, but the ability to actually question, analyze, synthesize that knowledge is such a human thing. And it's actually just core to how we've evolved and come to this stage, and how we grow and progress. And so my kids are not quite teenagers yet. They're 7 right now, but they went through this phase. So anyone who's had like young kids know, right, that kids have this phase where every question is a why. So if you tell them something, the response is a why, and that just shows how questioning and asking just why to understand more is so core to how we've kind of grown, and it's inbuilt within our sort of uh, DNA in that sense, right? So I just want to move on to what you can expect from this session. So one of the first things we'll kind of go over is to just broadly understand what the process or the stages of critical thinking are. So, critical thinking has distinct and unique stages and steps that it involves, and we'll kind of be looking at it from a research and academia angle. And then we'll kind of go over some ways that AI can maybe negatively affect this process of critical thinking. And while we're talking about critical thinking, we're essentially talking about the process or the journey from research to then actually writing, right? So we'll also look at some tips, like a framework of how we can use AI to actually enhance that process. And yeah, that's what you can expect from today. All right, so time for a quick poll. Just wanted to get an idea from all of you attending on what do you mainly use AI for. So shortly, you'll see a poll on your screen, um, which is going to run for maybe a minute or so. And yeah, just want to get an idea about what the audience mainly uses AI for. Right? Just going to wait for the poll to pop up. I don't seem to be able to see the poll, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at the responses. Okay. Looks like majority are using AI for editing or rewriting content, which makes sense because you have some text that you've written and you want to kind of polish that. Summarizing articles, writing first drafts, finding references are sort of the second, third, and fourth. And good to see that some of the folks, about 3%, have not used tools. Awesome. Okay, this looks good. Yeah. So while this poll is on, we have another one coming up. So the next poll is basically your biggest challenge when using AI in writing. Um, and yeah, given that writing was the biggest proportion of the answers earlier, I'm interested to see what this looks like. Okay. Yeah. All right. So trusting AI outputs right now is leading. Almost half of you find it hard to trust AI outputs. I don't blame you. Uh, Staying original is another challenge kind of being highlighted, which is, I think, important to what we're talking about. Retaining my voice is also retaining my voice and getting flagged by a detector seem to be at the third. Uh, right. Yeah. And then a few folks haven't really used AI for writing as yet. Okay. So I think there's a clear trend here that sort of trusting the AI outputs because of hallucinations and um, just uh, I think out of experience, right? Like we've seen outputs that sometimes so off the mark. All right. Okay, I'm just going to get back to sharing um, my screen. Okay, great. So that was some good insight into what you find challenging. But let's kind of now deep delve a little bit into the process of critical thinking. That I said that we'll kind of go over what critical thinking actually looks like, and especially in like science and research, I want to define critical thinking as the process of going from information, right? So information is out there. It may be unstructured, unorganized, but it's the process of going from information to judgment through this process of critical thinking, right? So you have your information that's out there, and then you have to make a judgment based on that. But you follow a process, and that process usually looks like this. You first gather the information, right? And in a research context, this may be, your literature search, or you're looking up definitions, or you're just finding what's out there. And you know after you've gathered the information, you want to kind of evaluate what you have, right? So you want to look at the sources, you want to see the citations, and just evaluate uh, the information that you've gathered. And then you question your biases, right? So uh, your research questions, hypothesis, you kind of question all of those based on information and evidence that you've gathered. And then finally, throughout all of this, you're kind of reasoning based on all of the information, evidence, you've questioned biases, and now you kind of reason to make a final judgment. You structure your arguments and so on and so forth. And again, this process is core to our humanity and core to how we function and how we've kind of evolved to be here, right? So it's less about what you think and the judgments you make, but more about how you get there, right? So it focuses on the process rather than the actual final. uh, it is about the judgment, but it's more about the process, right? And with AI now in the picture, right? Like um Nolita touched upon it a bit. It's kind of like all out there, right? Like, what effect does AI have on our ability to think critically? And just some articles, right? I just looked up some articles online, and it kind of looks bad, right? Like the headlines look like, AI is kind of uh, the doom for students who are using it. And then things like uh, increased use eroding critical thinking skills. And there are studies as well, right? So the studies are showing that relying on AI can harm your memory, your critical thinking. Again, a lot of it focused on the younger generation, on students. um, yeah, it's all out there, right? Like, there's so many articles. Another study finds that AI is making us dumb, right? So it's it looks like it's really bad, but I kind of want to explore that a little bit more. Okay, so this idea that AI can negatively affect our critical thinking, and this is the process that I just outlined, right? You gather information, evaluate evidence, question biases, and reason independently. So can AI negatively affect this process? And I think the answer is yes, if this process is outsourced to AI. And whether it is outsourced to AI or not kind of depends on how we approach and how we use AI, right? So I want to kind of contrast this view that AI can negatively affect critical thinking by showing that how AI can actually assist this process. And the way I want to do this is just by kind of showing this contrast, right? Like, so as we go through this process and we look at some examples now of all those different steps, we look at some examples of how the process or that step can be outsourced to AI versus used in a way that AI is actually helping and making the step better, right? So and as we go through these examples, you'll find some kind of tips and ideas of how you can kind of use work with AI better, right? So starting with that first step of gathering information, right? What does this step look like when you outsource it to AI versus when it's assisted by AI, right? And for this, I want to kind of present a scenario. So the scenario is just that you're gathering some information for an introduction section linking microplastics and health, right? So just an example of how it would look like outsourcing this to AI, you go straight in, right? You go straight in asking for an introduction paragraph. Give me an introduction paragraph on microplastics and health, right? And just one sort of uh, thing I want to throw out there, throughout these examples, I'm using ChatGPT. The reason I'm using ChatGPT is because it's widely used, but this can apply to any sort of AI tool out there, right? There are multiple tools out there. There's Claude, there's Gemini, there's so many tools, right? I don't name all of them, but the kind of principles I'm talking about apply roughly to all of them. And what I want us to kind of catch here is the approach to take, right? So if I ask um, the AI to kind of just write me an introduction paragraph, it does, right? So I get a paragraph here that kind of reads, okay, I can kind of look through this, but I don't know anything about whether this is factually correct. I don't know whether this is taken from actual research, whether any of this is hallucinated. I'm kind of have nowhere to go, right? I just have to kind of work with what I've gotten here. And this is not sort of the best way uh, to use AI, right? um, just showing you another way to kind of get the same kind of information that you would like. So in this scenario, I'm kind of asking AI to list key findings from recent studies on microplastics and health. So I'm already asking much more directed question. So I'm asking to list key findings from recent studies, and then I'm asking it to include citations for all facts and claims. Right. So let's look at what happens just with the this little bit of difference in prompt. Right. Uh, okay. So this was my prompt. I already see that it's much more than just a paragraph. Now I have kind of a summary, and then some citations and some text on microplastics in the brain, right? So I have to read through this. But one thing I find is that this is Reuters, right? So this is not necessarily uh, a peer reviewed study, New York Post. So these are like news media articles. There's Wikipedia in here, and we all know the problems with Wikipedia, right? uh, so what I did was I kind of asked the AI to give me citations only from peer reviewed research articles, right? So I want now citations only from peer reviewed research articles, and I'm actually getting that. So now I have similar kind of text, right, talking about microplastics in the brain, but now I have like a PubMed study here that I can dig into and I can read, right? So always click through every link that AI throws at you, because yeah, we'll see in as we go on, not always links may actually be correct, right? So great, this is already a lot more information along with citations. And then another advantage of or a, or a way to kind of use AI to help you is to kind of use it to kind of collate and summarize and structure the information, right? So I find it to be a good practice to always, after doing some bit of information gathering, to summarize all of that into maybe like a table that I can save and refer to later, and maybe just verify later, dig deeper into later. So this is just another tip that you can use to structure information when you're gathering it, right? So already so much better, and AI is now helping me a lot more than it did here, right? This was kind of just going directly from an idea into an introduction section. Okay, right. I'm going to move on to the next step now. Evaluating evidence, right? So let's look at similar sort of a scenario. You're now evaluating the impact of AI on peer review. Another sort of important topic, right? So AI is now kind of entering peer review. So what is the impact of AI? You want to just evaluate what's out there, right? So the way to not go about it is like this, right? So this prompt is basically saying name a few studies that show AI improves peer review, right? So you've asked it to give you a few studies, but you're already leading with the assumption that AI improves peer review, right? So you're asking, it's already like a leading sort of a question. So let's look at what happens here, right? So, okay, I have asked it to name a few studies, and I see a few studies, right? Artificial intelligence in peer review or systematic review. Okay, the authors published in this journal. Key findings are summarized. Great. There's a DOI as well, right? Looks good. Um, AI can support the quality and integrity. Okay, again, similar information. So there is some information on how AI improves peer review, but right, let's look at the study, right? So I'm just going to click on this. Okay, so what I'm finding here is that although there is a DOI in a study mentioned, this DOI actually doesn't exist, right? It's just pulled out of thin air. So this doesn't exist. So again, click through every single link that you see. Always don't just kind of look at how fluent and how nicely it's organized. uh Use, I mean, go through and follow through with with everything that's been thrown at you, right? Okay, so that was how um the AI functioned there. Let's look at another scenario, right? Or another prompt that gives us maybe a different outcome and shows how we can use it to help us, right? So in this prompt, I'm saying, can you suggest studies on AI and peer review with links or DOIs to research articles? So I'm asking for studies on peer reviews with links or DOIs to research articles, and I'm saying ensure that the link articles actually exist and cover differing points of view, right? So what I'm doing here is asking the AI to verify or to just ensure that the studies being provided actually exist, and also kind of asking for differing points of view, which is important, right? So let's look at what we get in this scenario. Okay, so yeah, I now see kind of pro AI integration, and then I see cautionary perspective. So already now this is giving me not just pro AI, it's giving me some a different perspective as well, which is great. And yeah, I see that okay, there is a study mentioned, and then there is an article here. I'm just going to click through on this article and see. Okay, use of artificial intelligence and the future of peer review. This is the study that was being spoken about here, and this is an actual study that exists, which is great already. And then I can kind of dig deeper, so on and so forth. So you can, kind of look at what uh, is being is being shown, and already just by saying that you want to ensure that the studies actually exist and cover differing points of view, the output is so much better. You have a pro view and a cautionary sort of view, which is great to kind of start evaluating what's out there, right? uh, okay, so already some good ideas on how to uh, get actual research. Obviously there are tools out there that only give you a peer reviewed research, and those are great. You can start out with those as well, but you actually need to take the step to kind of evaluate and dig deeper into those studies, right? Okay, just going to come to the next step now, and this is an important one, right? Questioning biases. And this step really matters because uh, all of us have bias, right? So bias is going to be there, but the important thing is to be aware and to be able to kind of question that, right? So uh, we have human bias already, right? So we have things like confirmation bias. We favor things that we already agree with, and all of our human bias kind of is reflected in data that is used to train AI, right? So, but human bias is one side of the picture. Uh, then you have, maybe a prestige bias, right? Like you favor information from a particular source that you think is prestigious or important, right? This could be maybe like a particular publisher, journal, or just any source of information that kind of you give high value to. You kind of bias that, and then we have bias in just a group that we're part of, right? Like say your research group, or just your friend group, or any group that you're part of, your culture, you have a sort of bias of ideas that are within like an echo chamber or a group, and you tend to kind of favor that versus going somewhere out. So that's something that we need to be aware of, right? And then when you have AI in the process, we have to also be aware of bias that may be there in AI, right? And we all know about like bias in training data, and all of our human bias is sort of all this bias of confirmation, prestige, cultural is all kind of reflected in training data, which kind of gets fed into AI as well. And then you have that bias out there. You have this bias, AI just sounding confident, right? Like we saw that example where it kind of summarized study, gave us like a DOI, but then wasn't anything out there, right? So the outputs look really fluent, they look impressive, uh, and that kind of can give the illusion of confidence that's out there, right? And then I want to introduce this term. I don't know if you may be familiar with this, but there's this concept of alignment faking. And there's a study you can look up on the Claude models, Claude 3, on this concept of alignment faking in large language models. So alignment faking is essentially, the way to explain it is, imagine you have, so I have someone I really look up to, I really like, and they have a point of view, and I just don't want to disagree with that. I want to kind of be agreeable and align with that, so I'll kind of agree and go along with something I may not actually agree with, but just because I want to appear to be on good terms with, I'll align my uh my thoughts with that. And AI does this all the time apparently, and that study kind of shows that it was something like 30% of the time where AI would kind of align with what is being expected, or sort of the reinforcement learning that it's getting, to kind of make sure that it's not getting flagged, right? So this is something to just be aware of, that AI will tend to kind of go along with what you're already looking at. So it's so important to, that's why again, question the output, right? Yeah, just something I wanted to throw out there from the movie I Robot. Yeah, sometimes you're wondering why AI is so wrong. It's probably a good idea to look inward. Okay, so coming back to just a scenario of what this looks like. So let's say you're trying to kind of decide between open access versus subscription based publishing. Trying to make up your mind, you're trying to question both sides. uh, yeah, one sort of way to do this is summarize why open access publishing is better than subscription models. Again, a leading sort of a prompt, you're asking AI to already give you a point of view and say why OA is better than subscription based models, and it will do that, right? It's going to give you some idea. But again, like, no citation. If you just ask AI to talk about something, it'll just talk about it without any sort of uh, citation or any sort of reference, right? So I don't know if there's anything much that you can do with this sort of an output, right? But what you could do is ask something like this, right? And I want to show two examples here. The first example, so just asking a question on what are the benefits and drawbacks of open access versus subscription based. And this is an interesting one. Let's look at this together. There's quite a bit to kind of glean from this. Okay, so I asked this question and I got a comparison, right? Like, so ChatGPT gave me benefits of open access, drawbacks of open access, benefits of subscription based, drawbacks of subscription based, right? But okay, and summarized it as well. But I want, look at this, right? So ChatGPT doesn't know who the audience is, right? Like, so doesn't know that the audience is a researcher. But then I asked it, can you add sources for all points? And it has now added sources. But okay, I'm looking for the sources, I don't see the sources. The sources are kind of at the bottom here. So this is not very helpful to me. I mean, it's just like listed sources. So I asked uh, AI to um, add the sources in line with each of the points, right? So now I can kind of look at each point and the source with it. That's how I want to kind of validate each of these points given to me, right? Otherwise it's hard to know which of them are actually valid or not. So just this first point, right? Like, so benefits of open access is that open access articles are cited more frequently and read more widely due to their free availability. Okay, there's an article from Springer Nature. I'm kind of gonna look into that, and this is just an article on fundamentals of open research by Springer Nature. And yeah, right. So this is what is being spoken about, that some studies show that open access articles are viewed more and cited more. But again, I don't really see which studies these are. Like, I tried looking at the bottom here. I don't know if I see any citations for this for this point, right? So what I did was I asked the AI to give me DOIs and links to studies that have shown this, right? That have shown access articles are cited more frequently and read more widely. And yeah, I see some studies now shown. So I'm just going to click on this, and yeah, so this is actually talking about citation advantage of open access articles, and I can now look at this data and, I don't know, actually make up my mind about what is being said here, right? So uh, so I was able to kind of go from asking a question on this to actually dig deep into one particular point and get some research and kind of look at what I want to look at, right? um but I want to just show another example, right? And this example is from Paperpal. um so I said that uh, in this example here, uh ChatGPT was kind of asking me to tailor the comparison for the audience, right? But one of the advantages with Paperpal is that it is designed for this audience, right? For the research, for academics. And I want to just show the same example of, I'm asking the same question, right? So if you can just look at, uh just gonna show this a little bigger here, right? So I- I've asked the same question, and now I have a response here which has given me the benefits of open access, drawbacks of open access. But how I asked ChatGPT to kind of add the citations in line, Paperpal has actually gone and done that for me already. So that is something I really like. um, One thing here is that all of these are going to be actual research articles, because they've been verified. And right, so you have um, top 8 papers, and then you have another 42 related papers to kind of look at, right? And then another thing here is just Paperpal prompting just a couple of different more questions you can look at, right? So maybe, are there any risks of predatory publishing? That's not something maybe I didn't think of, and I can now kind of explore that idea a little bit more. So you have these related questions, and then even if you want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into one particular article, right? So say, yeah, let's look at this one, right? So this study talking about the academic, economic, and societal impacts of open access. This is an evidence-based review. Okay, you can actually now kind of use the chat feature to dig much deeper into this article, right? So um, what the chat feature does is it opens up the PDF of the article and kind of gives you a starting point to explore this article more, right? So for example, provide a summary of the discussion section, so you can get a summary of the discussion section. And what it will also do is kind of prompt you to look at different parts or different aspects of the study, right? So what are the strengths of the study, what are the weaknesses of the study, right? Are there any study limitations, right? So let's just maybe try this out. Let's look at, I want to look at, maybe first you'll probably summarize the study, right? That's what you want to do first. But I just want to kind of take an example. So the articles open here on the left hand side, which is very handy, right, to actually look through uh, the PDF as you're kind of interacting with it. And yeah, I see some output here already, right? So it's telling me that the paper kind of discusses several limitations, and it's kind of listed out all of these, right? And the great thing is that each of these is also kind of linked here in the PDF, right? So if you want to look at what is being spoken about here, it's actually linked here. So this is just, I think, so streamlined and so um, convenient to kind of use, right? So yeah, you can look at a lot more questions and sort of dig deeper into this. Awesome. So uh, just to kind of summarize, right? So you take the time to kind of question and ask questions to dig deeper until you're satisfied and happy with what you're getting out there, right? And then coming back to this last sort of the last mile, or the step that kind of governs all of this, right? Reasoning independently. And here I kind of want to highlight that, all these steps that we kind of looked at so far of gathering information, you can use AI tools to kind of help you with finding papers. You can use it to kind of give you sources, different kinds of sources, recent, older. You can ask it to maybe even give you like an opposing point of view so that you're able to question and all of that, right? But the idea of being able to reason independently that kind of guides all of this is that purely human only step, right? So as we kind of go through everything and use AI, I think what we should be careful about, that we retain or we are in the driver's seat of, is this reasoning, right? So asking the question, asking that why, asking that show me more, or asking for an opposing view, is the step that cannot be outsourced, right? So AI can prep all of the information for you, but sort of connecting the dots, defending the claims, is that human step, right? So yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight now. So we've kind of gone over uh, the process of critical thinking and how AI can sort of assist that, and we saw great ways, right, that AI can be used to help and sort of collate information, sort of interact with research using that chat feature. But now, how do you go from that to kind of writing, right? And since most of you also said that you use AI for writing, and writing sort of is in this flow, right? uh, so just to kind of look at that flow, so you have the process of looking up literature. You search for your literature, you sort of organize and save and structure your citations, and then you go into like project design, right? Like, so the tools, methodology, your questions, and all of that, and then sort of looking into how you actually put that down into paper and present that in a structured way by writing your manuscript. And again, for this, I kind of wanted to uh, show what that looks like when you outsource it to AI, and that's basically just going from an idea or a hypothesis or a thought to directly asking AI to write for you, right? Like, so this is something that you would never want to do, right? So just give me an introduction section on X topic, right? So this is purely asking AI to fill in all of those steps of looking up actual literature, organizing that, sifting through it, looking at the limitations of different studies, and then just directly going into writing, right? So this is something that uh, will undermine the entire research writing process, right? But how do we then use AI assistively, right? So we have tools that can actually help us throughout this process, right? So for your literature search, you have uh, Google Scholar, you have tools like Paperpal, and then general purpose LLMs like Claude, GPT, Perplexity to do your literature search. You can use tools to even organize and save citations. So Zotero, Mendeley, EndNote. So the Paperpal feature that I showed you of kind of looking up research, you also have the ability to cite from there directly and store citations to your library. And then project design, right? Like, so asking the tool to suggest methods, but you are the one who's going to kind of sort of critique the feasibility of those suggestions, right? So you can use tools for that. And then even for writing, right, like you can use tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Paperpal, Wordtune, Copilot. But then it's your own thoughts and your own voice and your own reasoning that has to kind of shine through. You should be able to defend what is written, right? So um, so all of these tools can be used assistively, but you remain in control and you remain the one who's kind of actually reasoning through every step, right? um, so yeah, just coming to the end, I just wanted to present a rough framework or just an idea about how uh, to just kind of look at this idea of critical thinking with AI, right? And some of the things that we need to keep our eyes on, right? And I kind of want to have this framework presented like this. So you have to learn, evaluate, and reflect, right? So what this means is you never stop learning. So you never stop developing your own expertise. You never stop outsourcing the task of actually getting a deep understanding about your subject matter, right? So you still learn, you still use your own skills to learn and know more about your subject, right? And then you are very skeptical, right? You ask those why questions for everything. You don't just accept what you see. You don't just accept the AI outputs. You're skeptical, you verify, cross reference, just how I demonstrated, right, through those examples, until you're satisfied. And then the third step is the step of reflection, which I think is important. Every time you use AI, right? So every time you use AI as a tool, it's important to just examine the output, right? Like, so just look at the results. Did AI help you assistively, or did it kind of drown your own voice, or did your ideas kind of get lost in the output? So question that, reflect on that. Don't just kind of use AI in a way where you're not examining or reflecting on what's happening. So this is a sort of framework that I want to leave you with. Never stop learning, always evaluate, and then reflect on what the outputs are. Right? I can want to just end on a lighter note. Uh, that yeah. So the only way to kind of keep AI from taking over is basically to use it as a tool, right? Use it as assistively in a way to kind of help you do better. Yeah. Gonna hand it over to Nolita.
Thanks, Sam. That was an excellent presentation. I think you had everyone glued to your screens as much as we'd like to have the chat lit up a lot more. I think thanks for those who did engage on chat. It's a great virtual applause. I think you really had everyone focused uh, and engaged through that process. I think we achieved a great deal of critical thinking through this presentation itself. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. But I think it's extremely important, right? As you pointed out, um, the AI, can be. We think of it as a technology. We think it's unbiased, and I think somebody talked about blindly trusting it. But
Mm.
it can also be an echo chamber if we're not careful about how we really interact with it, and just recognizing that, and recognizing how we're using it, right, is an important first step. So thanks so much. I think we have a bunch of questions that we'll head over to in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Before we head there, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce Paperpal, as a sponsor of this webinar as well. And I saw a few questions about Paperpal, so I'm going to try and address that through the introduction. So, for those of you who are already using PayPal, you might know this. But for others, PayPal mainly started off as a tool that helped authors, researchers polish their draft paper and manuscript. So, like many of you using, AI to polish your writing, that's where we started. Um, and our biggest strength lies in the ability to understand academic context, so technical terms, writing styles across 1,300 fields of study. And this was born out of Editage, which is our parent company, where expert human editors, Sam was one of those, ages ago, who've been really improving research manuscripts and technical content for over 22 years. So we've taken this expertise, these experts combined it with advanced machine learning and created a best in class AI editing tool. And we didn't stop there because our vision at PayPal was much bigger. And of course, AI can do so much more. So our mission really was to help every individual that sat down to write daily for those 30 or 60 minutes, irrespective of whether English was the first language or not, to have a very productive writing experience. And not just that, can writing be something that you really enjoy? something you look forward to, not really keep to the last minute. So that's really our mission. And what we've done over the last year is we've transformed PaperPal, as you saw, as Sam also kind of demonstrated, into a full stack tool. So you can actually find references that you can rely on. You can actually synthesize your learnings or findings from papers that actually can feed into your draft. You can capture your viewpoints, feed into your draft. You can use AI in the process of actually framing your thoughts, all the way to the finish line for polishing, and even after. So while some users have said that you don't just give us the end output, that's intentional. We really try our best to support the critical thinking process. If you'd like to try the tool, I think some of you asked if we have a free version, which we do, and it has a certain limit. The outputs are exactly the same, as the premium version. It's just that we have certain limits on the free version, on the number of users. So you can try out the forever free version, and if you want to kind of have the unlimited experience, then there's a special 30% off that you can see on screen, which is available until the end of the month. um, and if you're already a Prime subscriber, thanks to those of you who've trusted us, I saw some of your comments. You can also upgrade, to a higher plan. And the offers auto applied at checkout. And before we move on to the Q&A, we'd also like to take a moment, as some folks might head out, to get your feedback on today's session, and help us understand if you liked it, if you'd like more of this. We'd really like to make these sessions more relevant and useful to you. So please follow the link in chat and leave your feedback. And I think with that, we can head over to Q&A. Great. Wow, those questions just went a lot more. Let's give you a minute and cool. I think we've tried to kind of group, some of these questions, and this comes up quite often. But I think there's one about how can we look original during the use of AI. So I think, Sam, you want to kind of give this a shot?
Yeah. So, I mean, to sound original, your voice has to be retained, right? And everyone has their own voice at different stages of your experience with writing. Expertise may vary, right? But you have your own voice. And one of the ways I kind of like to use it is to use like a voice note feature. So what I like to do is kind of just open like a tool like audio pen or just the mic icon or just a recorder and speak right about my thoughts about any particular topic. So I kind of get that down first before I even start using AI, right? So I already start with my own voice, and then I ask the AI to kind of modulate that or kind of give me critique on that. So I'm not losing out on my own thoughts, on my own ideas. AI is not kind of filling in any blanks. I'm kind of getting my own ideas out there, and which may be kind of enhanced or improved by the AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I can add in there and jump in there, what's a great thing you can also do is if you've kind of recorded your notes, as Sam said, right, through an audio tool, or even if you have them handwritten, right, in some way, you can actually use AI to transcribe it. So that's one good way of moving past. So writing down with pen and paper is great. You can use AI to copy it over. What is useful is, let's say you're drafting a first paragraph. You can actually just write down your bullet points, take your notes as an attachment, feed it to the AI, and say, okay, fine, now write something or give me a first draft based on this. So what happens is that it's actually using your thoughts, your context, right, to give you that first draft, that first paragraph. So that's one way to always kind of stay in control. The other thing is, of course, if you're using, and a lot of the people in the audience said, they're using AI to rewrite it, to polish it. What tends to happen is, it might take a certain tone. Some tips that we've heard from our users is they actually speak out aloud. So once they've written something and they're complete with a section, they'll actually read it out aloud to themselves, and then they'll think that, hey, does this sound like me? And if it doesn't, it's a clue to say, how would I say it differently, that allows you to think, and you can go back and make some changes. So these are some great ways at different stages that you can try and ensure that you are sounding original. Moving on to the next question around AI and originality. There's a question from Noor around how do you perceive the use of human originated ideas? that are later presented as AI generated output. So maybe let me take a stab at this first. I think, I think firstly, AI at the end of the day is essentially some kind of a syntax generator, right? It has a training corpus based on the questions that you ask, based on what it understands. It is simply framing a response to that. So I don't believe that the opinions that AI, or the response that AI is giving, is something original. And that's why you'd see a lot of journals, a lot of people say that you can't really quote AI as an author. It can't take ownership or accountability for the content that it's putting out there. It is merely generating syntax. Now, if as an end consumer we are using that output and putting it forward, or simply you know postulating that as someone's point of view or your own point of view, that's when it starts to get problematic, because you've not gone through the process that Sam described, to really think about, okay, do my views align with this? Have I understood enough about this topic and become a reasonable expert in this topic to have my own point of view? I think what the AI can be used for is to help you, explore the topic more deeply, help you kind of fast track the process. So that's where I see things slightly differently. I hope that answers your question. But Sam, if there's anything else you'd like to add, please go ahead.
No, no, Neet, I think that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm going to kind of skip over to this question, which, because I know we're running short of time, but I'd like to take this one. How could a teacher use this tool to promote critical thinking in students? Most just blindly trust whatever is generated. So, Sam, do you have any tips given what you're thinking about with your own kids?
Yeah. So again, right? So present it as a tool, right? Like it is a tool that is not meant to replace thinking. So I think in all these steps, right? So we can kind of teach our kids or the or students the process, right? Like of how you go through actually the process of critical thinking, and just the way I presented AI as a tool and how to use it to kind of support that process rather than go from first to the last, right? So give me an introduction section is essentially skipping that whole process of thinking to just get to the output, right? It's kind of accelerated in a way, but it's too fast, right? You're not actually going through that process and there's no learning involved at all. But if you use AI as a tool and you actually kind of outline the process for the younger generation, then they understand that okay, this is what I need to do. I'm in control, and then I just use AI as a tool, and inevitably that's actually faster, right? It is faster than doing everything. So imagine literature lookup before any sort of search existed, right? You can now have a tool that gives you all of that information so quickly. So your process is faster, but it's not kind of outsourced. So I think the key there is highlighting AI as a tool, right? As something that is meant to help you and do things better, and not as kind of an end all for the solution. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. I think if I can jump in there, both Sam and me are not actively in the teaching profession, but I have been attending a lot of sessions because our products, are used by a lot of students, and therefore it's important for us to understand how professors think and how are they really dealing with this. Attended a great session, in fact, just the other day, and I'll share the link in chat. But a lot of professors out there are actually, I think the number one step they're doing is they are encouraging transparency when it comes to use of AI tools. So they're asking students to be upfront if they are using AI tools. They're asking them to maintain a record of how they're using it, so that what starts to happen is, if you can also look at the process, and if there are the incorrect prompts, like Sam said, you could be writing out a very biased questions. It's a great way to kind of capture that and correct that. I think this specific webinar that I attended, the instructor actually had some great um, modules that he actually runs, where to show that the AI is eventually not an expert. He actually gets students to write down, after specific points in, the module, to write down, what they think their future career could be based on their profile, and they're supposed to, kind of expand on their interests, their likes, and things like that. And based on that, like, kind of think about, what are potential career trajectories for them, and they would think about two or three things, and they say, okay, fine, now you go into chat gpt, you feed in your own your previous profile, and now you ask it to write something about yourself. Now what you'll see is chat gpt could generate anything at all. And what you're going to basically see now is, what they'll realize is you're always an expert on yourself, right? And I'm borrowing again from the webinar, and I will share that link, Bob. But when you see the AI trying to talk about you, you'll realize that, hey, this person doesn't know me. And then, you really don't start blindly trusting the AI anymore. It sometimes will give really weird things as well. So this is how I think, kind of, getting people to do things independently, as well as using AI, kind of juxtaposing it, make it an open conversation, being transparent. I think there's a lot that can happen, and I've shared the webinar link in chat. So there's a lot of interesting discussions happening around the space. So do check it out. um, Great. So let me move forward to next one. um, Okay, there are two related questions. How can you bypass AI checking by using PayPal? Mostly AI writing is AI detectable. Any solution for scientific writing that is not AI detectable? Um, Now, AI detection is my favorite topic. We're always answering this in most sessions. I think really where we see the world moving towards is, initially there was a lot of fear mongering around, AI came into the scene, nobody was prepared, and there was ban the use of AI, look at AI detection scores, and really, just stop using AI. I think now the narrative has really moved over to more constructive use of AI. So I think there are clearly two pathways emerging. If you are already an expert, you're someone who's complete their PhD, doing their research, and kind of publishing. What researchers are really, what journals and publishers are looking for is, have you presented, and like they always look for, grounded research, rigorous data, rigorous findings. Have they been communicated well? If you've used AI, have some hallucinated kind of references come in, things like that. They're looking for basically rigor, and that has changed. There's less emphasis on, oh, is this text generated using AI? It's not that anymore. And if you're someone who's on the novice side of things, students who are still developing, their critical thinking skills, then I think the emphasis again is on the process of really completing an assignment. And if there is use of AI, how can you be transparent and do that? So I think AI detection is used to some extent in many of these areas, but it is to potentially flag, and it's more a question of transparency, honesty. So if you're disclosing it up front, you're confident in the end work, you're doing the work right, then I think really bypassing AI shouldn't be the end objective. And if it really just does come up, then I think even just having evidence of how you kind of use this is equally important. And the last thing, of course, AI detectors in itself are definitely not, even the best ones out there have high false positive rates, and you'd see it on any of their websites. So just going by an AI detection score is definitely not the way to go. So I would say don't be worried about AI detection, but move on from there. So I think quickly moving on, and we'll take maybe, I think there is a question on, let's take this one. How do you write an, if I may add, if we learn to write an effective prompt, can we get the best output? Sam, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So prompt writing is definitely a skill that we kind of have to learn, and I, the examples that I showed kind of showed that, right? Like, you have to be specific. You have to ask for the opposing view. You have to ask the AI to provide sources that are verified. If you want sources that are only from research, if you want sources that are from, news, media, whatever, right? So specify, be as specific as possible. So coming back to that framework, right, you have to know the subject area to be able to prompt well. So I think prompting in itself is a skill, but it kind of is backed by all of the knowledge you have about that field. So you should be knowing what you want to get out of that output. If you just go with kind of a very blank slate, that's like uh, the way you should not be prompting, right? So asking very very vague general question. So be specific, ask for counter views, ask for sources, and just until you're satisfied, use that reasoning independently step to kind of until you're happy with the output. And yeah, it's a skill. You'll kind of get better at it as you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, meaning I think he's being very kind. I think it's almost a science these days. But I think what's most important is, if you're someone who's not really investing in figuring out how to write the prompts, I think rely on tools that and that's part of what PaperPal tries to do. It kind of tries to remove the burden of, how do you write the perfect prompt to get the perfect output. Meaning you could still go in there and put in a wrong question, but we try and minimize that as much as possible. So I think your choice of tools also matters. Many traditionally think about, if you write role and things like that, it tries to get better, but that's again in a very limited context. If you're looking at tone or writing style, I think what really works when you're prompting is as much context as possible, breaking down the steps that you want. So all of that, kind of can be extremely impactful, and that's what we try and build into the design of the product. So if I tell someone add a lot of context in a prompt, they'll be wondering, oh, what is that? But if I ask someone to attach your notes, it's very easy to do, and that essentially is context. So I think these are things to keep in mind. But again, how you're using it for what are equally important. And of course, I think, as it was exchanged in, yeah, you can use AI to construct the perfect prompt as well. Thanks, Bob. You can get to critique your prompt as well. So those are great ways to do it as well. And I think, like someone said, I think going into tools like, say, chat gpt, etc., definitely not the places if you're looking for research. A lot of great tools out there, which actually, I think this was a question that came up. What really does ChatGPT source its data from? It's primarily sort of a web search, its own training data, and then it's kind of giving you an output. And it will kind of give a preference to academic websites if you ask for that. But if you use tools that are predominantly academic, so PaperPal is definitely one of them. There's Undermined, Licit, and of course you can feed it your own data. Then what starts to happen is it is definitely looking at academic sources, and you can verify it. You can quickly scan the abstract. So it kind of moves the process along so much faster. So I think that's, I mean, definitely look at prompting if you're looking at something hardcore. But if you're looking to kind of move your work along, I would say find the right tool, and invest in a good process. Um, Okay, I think we're over time, and there are a lot of other questions. Maybe what we'll do is I'd invite folks to join our Discord server, and maybe we could take some of these questions and kind of continue the conversation over there, uh, just in the interest of time. And if you'd like to reach out to either of us, for anything, feel free to write in as well. And I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. Glad folks have enjoyed the session, shared their feedback, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks, and have a lovely rest of the day, evening. Good night.
Bye everyone. Thank you.